On today's episode of RCKicks, we're fitting a slipper clutch into the Schumacher Top Cat, so stay tuned for that one. Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're putting a slipper clutch in my rere Top Cat from Schumacher. Now, unfortunately, this car was discontinued not that long ago, along with the XLS. So hopefully we can see something new from them soon. Fingers crossed, still no word, no rumbling of if they're going to release another vintage re-release kit, but hopefully soon. It does still look like there's a gap in their product offering because there's a lot of new cars out. So hopefully, please, Schumacher, bring out another one. Cougar 2000, Cougar. We can only ask. Anyway. So the plan in this video is to fit a slipper clutch into this car. Now, Schumacher does offer a Pro transmission upgrade for this car, but since it was discontinued and RCKicks announced it was being discontinued, you lot bought them all up, and you bought all the kits up, and you bought all the XLSs up, and you bought all the options up. So I couldn't get one. So I wanted to show some upgrades on this car. So that kind of left me going, what am I going to do? But there was a solution for me, and that was this. What is it? Well, it's a KF2 slipper clutch conversion from Muzzoom Models. So what do you get for your money? Well, the original Pro transmission was £52.24 and it was U7 600 and the maximum turn was 6.5, so you could get it down there, and that's a lot of power in one of these because it's very easy to start pulling wheelies when you've got that kind of power. So then you need to add other things to make the car a bit more stable, like the brass front. Anyway, we're not really covering the front on that episode. I did a whole one on that. I'll put a link up here. Go check that out if you want to know about the brass upgrades on the front. So Muzzoom Models sell the KF2 slipper clutch for £45.50. Now, a lot of the parts for this actually are from Schumacher, so let's take a look at what you get. Now, why would you want to put a slipper clutch into this buggy? Well, not only can it take more power, but also when you jump it, when it lands hard, the slipper clutch slips and that energy goes into friction instead of being shunted right through your running gear and all your gears and stripping teeth and things like that. So that's one reason. So what do you get? Well, you get U7065, which is a slipper spring. See, a lot of these parts are actually from Schumacher. U7154, 89 tooth spur gear. Then we have U4705 alloy inner slipper plate, KF2. Then we have U4674 slipper spring bush, KF2. U4669 lay shaft, KF2. Then we have the bespoke ones that are 3D printed from them, which is the actual sprocket itself and a carrier of some sort. And then we have U3364, which is the slipper pads PTFE Octagon PR. And then the last one we have is U4672 alloy outer slipper plate, KF2. So a lot of the KF2 parts basically, and then their little modifications to make it work. Now you use all the original belts and everything from that point of view. So I don't know, I can't honestly say what's better, but I couldn't get hold of the Pro transmission anymore, and I think this is a little bit different as well. Now, I'll put some blurb underneath that comes from Muzzoom Models of what they're saying about this transmission, but me personally, I don't know, and I haven't got both of them here, so I can't run both to give you which is the best. But this is a bit different, which I kind of like as well. Now, I don't know how many they have of these. On the website it was saying sold out, but when I contacted them they had them. But being that they need to pick up all these parts from Schumacher, how many they will actually have, I honestly don't know. But get in contact with them yourself if you are interested. They also do tons of other bits and pieces for the XLS. I've got a few parts from them for the XLS as well, and as well as they do lots of different options and things like that. They're a small company, so give them a big shout out. They didn't sponsor the video or anything. I paid for all this stuff myself, but they've been pretty easy to deal with, and the communication is good, so I've got to give them a bit of a shout out because they're just a small company in the UK. And then you get the instructions on how to do it. Now, it doesn't look too difficult, and you do use parts that are actually in the car already, but then the Pro transmission was exactly the same. Right, let's strip down the car and make a start, see what happens. Now, if you've built a Top Cat, you'll know that the rear wing mechanism works really well, but is a total pain to put on and remove. But being that the wing hangs right over the rear of the car, it gets in the way if you want to work on the diff. So I thought I would unscrew it from the main chassis but not take it off the actual wing itself. Turns out you can't really do that because you have access to one side but not the screw on the other. But what you can do is actually remove the upright and tilt it forward later on when I figured it out, so you can get it out the way without dismantling the very fiddly rear wing mounting mechanism. Disconnect the 2 ball joints and unscrew the 4 bolts holding the transmission onto the chassis from underneath. Once you've done that, you can pull the diff clear of the chassis and disconnect the drive shafts. Now, you don't want to dismantle the whole transmission itself, just remove one side. That way you can pull out the pulley and swap it over and slide it back into place. As I'm not removing the diff, this works perfectly well. I decided to leave the belt tension as it was when I dismantled it. I did have it slightly on the tight side, so I'm hoping that that's going to be tight enough for the new pulley. I will adjust it at a later date if I notice there's any slipping. When you're building up the slipper clutch, it's best to lay out all the parts in order so you've got access to them, so you're not hunting around for a missing part halfway through building up your clutch. Obviously you can't set the slipper clutch now, you have to wait until you're actually driving the car, but then it's very easy to tighten or loosen up the slipper clutch bolt. Once everything's back together again, it's a simple job of just retracing your steps, putting all your screws back in till you've got a completed car. So there you go, 40 minutes later I now have a slipper clutch in my Top Cat. So what did I think? Is it a good idea or not? Well, it's a bit more, like most things in life, it's a bit more complicated than that, because you did have the option for a Pro transmission, which was basically changing the pulley, the diff itself to a ball diff, and the belts and everything. And the idea behind that was that Schumacher wanted to make everything much stronger, and you also got a slipper clutch, and it was a turnkey solution that you just put in, and then you could run right down to 6.5 turn motors to really give it some beans, and you could run brushless in it as well. Now, being that you can't get those, because once they discontinued these, everyone ran out and bought everything, so I couldn't get one. So I saw this as a sort of an option to go along instead of that, but it's not a direct replacement, because this adds a slipper clutch, but you still run your standard diff. So you can't go down to 6.5 turn motors, but you get the benefit of having a slipper clutch installed, which is great for a car like this, that you can dial it in so that when you plant the power, it obviously eliminates some of your wheel spin, and you can get it so it won't lift the nose clean up, and you'll get it to be more balanced. So there is a plus just to having that anyway. But it's not cheap. It's almost the same price as the Pro transmission. Another side of it that's kind of in there is if you're doing vintage racing. Now, I don't do vintage racing, so I don't know what the rules are in your area about what you can put on and what you can't. Whether you're allowed to run a Pro transmission in a Top Cat while racing, I honestly don't know. Or whether you must use a stock diff. If the rules state that you must use a stock diff, but doesn't say anything about anything else, then obviously this would be a good mod, because you could run a slipper clutch with a standard diff, which could be a good option for you. I honestly don't know. But being that you can't get a Pro transmission currently, whether we will see any more, probably not. I don't know, saying that, maybe the Pro transmission will be put into a Cougar, because that uses the same one, so we might see it again. So then you might be able to get hold of a Pro transmission. There'll be a lot of people that are probably trying to flip them to make a bit of profit as well on them, so you might see a few come up. So I don't know whether it'd be worth buying one at a higher price if you see it, or just waiting to see if Schumacher brings out a re-release Cougar, because obviously this shares a lot of parts with that. So I don't honestly know. Don't know anything about it, not hearing any rumours or anything. So there you go. I am now talking to Muzzooms. I want to find out what diff options I have, whether there's something they can do, or I will dig into it whether I can actually pick up a diff housing from a Pro transmission, and what little bits I need. Can I get hold of those parts? Because you can kind of treat them as two separate bits, the pulley mechanism and the slipper clutch and the diff, because it's just connected by a belt, so you can mix and match. But there you go, I just wanted to show you that's what's left over. I will keep this obviously, so that I might be able to return it back to a stock one if I needed to. I did use, when you fit the slipper clutch, obviously it sticks out for the adjustment, so you have to adjust the housing, so I had to put a little hole in it. I used a reamer from the body just to give me a nice hole, so it looked like it was supposed to be that. It needs a cap over it. One thing I would recommend for their Muzzoom kit is that you can actually make a little cap. That would be quite nice, that you could modify to go onto this. The only challenges I had, there were two. One was completely my fault. One was just the essence of 3D printing. Now the pulley in this kit is 3D printed, and you put the shaft through it and it should be a 5mm hole, and then you slide it all the way through. Being that it's 3D printed, it was so tight that I had to get a 5mm drill bit, drilled it out, and then I had to knock it in. It was still really tight, but obviously I didn't want to go any bigger than that because you'd get rattling. So be wary, you're going to need you probably will need a 5mm drill bit just to clean out that hole. That's what I did, unless you get one that's slightly bigger and it just slots straight in. It was impossible to put it in without me doing that on my one. Now the other mistake I made was that I missed one screw out, and I had to take the transmission out to put that one screw in. Completely my fault. The instructions are just about enough to get through it, so it's not too difficult. The only thing it doesn't state in there, which is kind of obvious but you might not know that, is you put a pad on each side. It gives you the list to build the diff, and it mentions the white hexagon pads, but you put one on each side. It basically mentions it that you put the pads on afterwards, but you don't put two pads on one side, you put one pad on each side. So there you go. That's pretty much it for now. I did put the front modification where the arms are shorter. I will run it through the Buggy track again to see what kind of speed I get out of it. I need to put a new motor in it. before I can run it again, and I need a half height servo because I robbed it out of this for another project, so I need to get hold of a couple of half height servos. For some reason the last 3 or 4 kits I'm building are all demanding half height servos, so I'm short of them, so I need to do that as well. So there you go. What do you think? Comment below if you're a vintage racer. Is this something that you would be allowed to have, something you wouldn't, or anything like that? Or if you know of an upgrade diff for this, or if you know what fails in a stock transmission when you run more power. Is it the diff that fails, or is it the pulley that fails? Looking at the Pro transmission, the pulley is a metal, machined metal, so obviously that was probably made to be stronger. I honestly don't know. Right, anyway, thanks very much. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Top Cat.